So pretty much finished draining. Now I'm gonna put copper paste on that drain plug right there, and I'm gonna reinstall it. Alright, after the coolant is drained, I'm gonna start removing these coolant hoses. Have to be careful with this end because it likes to, the plastic of the radiator likes to break off on this, so you gotta be really careful. After you loosen the clamps, now you're gonna grab a pick and just kind of slowly and carefully go around the hose to break that seal. And don't actually pierce the hose or anything. Just go slow. There's one end, and there's the other end. This end, I'm just gonna move it out this way, out of the way. And there's still some coolant left in there, as you guys see. Next, pull the bottom hose, and then just in case, have this catch can in here, whatever. Nope, no coolant. I think it's because the thermostat is closed. So, probably gonna pull this thermostat right here, 10 millimeter, and there's still coolant in there. As you can see, they used the RTV on that thermostat gasket right there, which sucks. I'm gonna have to clean that up. So this is 10 millimeter. Also, be careful when removing these bolts. I already loosened up the water pump bolts as well, but with the water pump you have to be really careful because these like to break, especially if they've been there long enough. But what you need to do is just grab a thing, grab a ratchet like this. Don't grab it by the end here, grab it here so you can feel it. So one of the bolts was actually like really tight, and that's actually because they used the RTV sealant on the water pump, and then some of that sealant got on the bolt threads and it got dry, and then when you try to take it off, it's coming out really stiff and hard. So what I had to do is I had to go slowly back and forth. I would take it off a little bit and then I would go back with it because any other way you're gonna break the bolt. That's why you have to kind of, like, I call it like a massage. You have to massage the bolt. You know, if you feel that it's gonna break or it's coming out really stiff, go back. You know, don't force the bolt, then give it a little bit of break. You know, it's gonna come out eventually. So the rest of the water pump bolts, the rest 5 of them were fine, but just one of them was like really stiff because the sealant got on the threads. But anyways guys, I'm gonna pull this thermostat off now. So 2 of these bolts are coming out fine. Okay. And then the bottom one is really stiff coming out, so I gotta be really careful. It was really stiff at first. As soon as it gets stiff, you gotta go back. Just gotta play with it. Then when you reinstall the bolts, the cooling for the cooling system, it's a good idea to use the copper paste so they will never seize. Because copper paste, it holds up to like 2000 degrees of Fahrenheit, so it's really strong. It's not gonna you know, evaporate or anything. All right, finally it's coming out loose. That's a lot of it. Wow. Alright, I made some mess, but I cleaned it up. Now I'm gonna pull the water pump, and then I'm gonna pull this whole housing off. I removed this clamp already. So. So do you guys like the sound of the fountain, or do you guys like the diesel therapy? Look at that, it's draining perfectly fine to my bucket. Alright, after a light hammering, this guy's coming out. Ooh, that does not look good, huh? Yeah, okay, at least they used the gasket. That's good. Alright. So this was still a good water pump, but I'm gonna remove this whole housing. I already removed these bolts. Gotta take it off. Disconnected this hose. Alright, this overflow line is off. I just gotta remove these 5 bolts. And we're gonna be able to remove this whole housing out of here. Also, don't lose your washers. There's a lot of washers here too. There we are. It's the whole assembly. Alright guys, now this is all out. I'm gonna clean the gasket surface areas and everything else. And yeah, I gotta clean this area up really good, and then I'm gonna jump to this and prepare all this stuff. To clean the surface, make sure you put something inside, so when you try to remove this gasket, it doesn't go inside.
A few moments later.
Bottom gasket. I'm in the process of cleaning it. It's just the gasket seems like it's either really old or something, because it's so hard to scrape it off. But this gasket surface is prepared. Alright guys, so here's my assembly all ready to go. Okay, I cleaned it up and painted it. So these are the bolts. I actually cleaned them up too. They look pretty good. My thermostat, I'm gonna install that. But first things first, I'm actually remove this thermostat housing right here, this second half. And I'll quickly show you those two gaskets that you need for installation of this whole assembly. This is for the bottom part. Okay, this is actually gonna go right there. Also, don't lose your bolts. This goes on the top portion. Okay, so I'll show you that as well. Alright, make sure all your surfaces are clean and pretty straight, smooth for a good seal. And we're gonna be ready to install all this stuff back. After you kind of started that thing, make sure the gasket is in place. Right there. What I like to do, guys, I like to use the copper paste on these bolts, especially when I use it on the thermostat bolts and the water pump bolts, because this will prevent the bolts from seizing. And yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and start tightening everything here slowly.
1 hour later.
Here's the thermostat housing gasket, right? It's gonna go right there. I'm gonna slide it in. Just before you tighten these bolts, just make sure that the gasket is seated properly and that the bolts go through the gasket. Don't forget about this bracket that holds your AC line in place. And that's it. I'm gonna start. I put some copper paste on those two bolts as well, and I'm gonna be ready to actually bolt everything up, tighten it German tight. Now, this is what I'm doing with the hoses. Before reinstalling them, I put copper paste. That's kind of like gonna help, hopefully, with corrosion, and I think it should help. You know, any lubricant helps against rust and corrosion. Now, alright, new thermostat. Apologize for all the shakiness, if anything. Okay, when you tighten it, there should be no gap between the main housing and the second half of the thermostat housing. And then also when you tighten, don't over tighten these because they will break. You will feel when the bolt stops, so then just kind of give it a little bit more torque, and that's it. And try to hold it like I'm holding it, like as far as the ratchet, because you don't want to hold it at this end, because you want to be able to feel it. And if you hold it through that end, if you're going to be tightening it like holding this end of the ratchet, you're most likely going to break that bolt. Alright guys, so here's the water pump I'm going to be installing, okay, on this car. I prepared the surface. I got a brand new gasket right there, and let's go ahead and install this water pump. Alright, so when you're tightening these all the way, go crisscross pattern and just be really careful. Grab the ratchet where I have it grabbed, and just kind of go ahead and be very careful, don't over tighten them. Okay, now I can start actually installing my water pump pulley belts and everything. And I'm gonna put copper paste right there as well. Check for leaks here first. There's the coolant. I already installed it. I poured it in. Now, in order to install your water pump pulley, you have to loosen up that 17mm bolt, and then there's one right here, the nut. And then you're gonna turn this counterclockwise and just keep turning it. Just be careful, don't break that mechanism, put some PV blaster in there or something, and then eventually you'll be able to actually install it. Alright guys, it's another day and it's still so windy, and yeah, the engine is actually cold now, and I'm checking the coolant level. There's nothing in there. There is some, but I have to top it off. Now we can see the coolant actually right there. Also guys, I put copper paste right there under the hose, and also right there, pretty much everywhere, even here. And also when you're tightening this clamp, actually be careful, because this plastic actually likes to break off, especially on these 240Ds, so don't over tighten this. As you're tightening it, just check the tension, and probably leave it alone, see if it actually